I there was someone who hacked something and sent emails around to you all asking in my name that
Yes.
you got missed. But is that what you were talking about, Elizabeth? Because I
No,
didn't.
you said availability for yesterday, I think it was, and I said I was free, but that may have been from someone else.
That
That
was
was
that was a scam.
Oh,
spam.
That was a
Yeah, I
scam.
saw it,
what was
and I thought, Skip, you always say what something is about. I'm not answering that because you
Right.
didn't say what it was about.
Right.
And
uh,
then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, oh, he got hacked.
Right.
uh,
No,
I
I got
did
Call,
get
I
got that.
that.
Hovered
call it
over
skip.
when I got on my computer, I hovered over the name and it wasn't anything like your
Right.
email address
Right. So
on there.
that was a scam, Elizabeth.
Yeah,
That was not me reaching out to you.
I'm afraid I responded to it and I got hacked. Then I spent 2 hours trying to get clarity, but anyways,
They did that with Mary once, and they did that with Kevin more recently.
yeah.
And I kept leading them on. They said, "Are you available?" Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm available later. And then says, "Well, I want you to get some gift cards." And they said, "Okay." He said, "Okay, meet me at West Saugerties Road and Blue Mountain Road at 4:30. We'll see you there." I never heard from him again.
No.
Anyway, okay, so let's get started. I sent out the minutes, so I'm sure everybody read them. And so are we going to pass those? We approval of those? All in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
I
Okay, approved. And do we have any guests? I guess no guests. I was hoping that Mike Ivino would come and explain the food waste collection composting thing that the town is in the process of organizing. I got he said he would come, and then I emailed him again this morning, and he got back to me at 3:30 saying he couldn't do that. He couldn't make it. So he said Zach could explain it. Zach, is that the case?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much caught up on what Mike started to spearhead. Initially, the conversation took place with how can we, of course, um,
Without
maximize the
what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
maximize.
I'm sorry. I didn't
we-
understand the first sentence.
Mike, yeah, I said yes. I'm pretty much caught up with what Mike started to spearhead. Um, this really started with ways that we can, of course, maximize the production of the zero waste at the festival, such as the Garlic Festival. Um, we applied for a grant through Ulster County for 2 food waste specific containers. What that would look like if we're able to get those, that's pending approval, of course, but the application was submitted. Um, the town transfer station will be able to we'll be able to internally do drop off and pick up, and handle kind of all of that in house. Um, we kind of expanded from there and reached out to Dan Ersig's office and see how the high school can get involved, um, and looking to do a main compost location at the high school and get the students involved as part of community service and whatever they have to do on their end. But we are engaging the school district as well to see, um, how they can participate in the program.
That's great. That's great to hear.
So he told me that you'd applied for the registration to be able to accept food waste.
That is correct.
And then also a transfer. So you're intending
Correct.
to do, he described the process as the roll-offs they had two sections, and one would accept the waste and the other would start a digestion process, each of which
Correct.
would be 30 days. Is that correct?
That sounds correct. Yes.
And then apparently it would be offloaded to a composting site to finish it off.
Mhm.
Is that right?
That is right.
So, and that there, he was saying they were considering the high school, but I mean, I remember way back when we were considering composting, there was some pretty heavy regulations about what you could do, like you had to create a pad and stuff like that. Has that been
Sure.
investigated?
I cannot speak to whether or not that's been investigated or not. I don't know if when Mike met with Dan Ursig and his team, if that was part of their conversation. Mike didn't relay that to me. So of course, we can follow up on that, but I can't speak to that at the moment.
Mhm. There isn't any work. This is still in process. I started talking to Mike about this a couple months ago, and
Yep.
it was still in process. Seems like it's at the same point, that there's no particular plan and there's no particular site for the composting, because he also mentioned they were trying to decide between or be inclusive of both the land transfer station site and the school site.
Yes.
Or
And it's,
that,
I know we've kind of been down this road before. It's taken a little bit of time to get the cooperation of some of the transfer station folks. But yeah.
well, this is pretty big, and I'm really interested and excited
Yeah.
About this. I mean, especially since I just read in the paper yesterday that the county is reaching out to townships and encouraging them to take care of their own food waste and not bring it to the county. So this
Yes.
is a significant thing.
Yeah, the Resource Recovery Agency, they're trying to make quite the initiative here. You're right. They're reaching out to a lot of the locals and jurisdictions and really trying to get them off their ground to be self-sufficient.
So because of that, is there any financial help from the county to encourage that?
I don't know what that looks like at the moment, aside from the, funding opportunities to purchase the containers. As far as what they're offering outreach wise or education wise on their end, I'm not sure what that looks like.
So I was also, Mike described the obtaining of the roll-offs as awards and not grants, that actually you would be awarded these two roll-offs. And it sounded like you didn't have to go through any granting,
Yeah,
procedure.
that's the that's the professional in me talking. I'm just so used to it with work, but Mike is right. Essentially, applying for it, there aren't stipulations with the containers in terms of monitoring and reimbursements and things like that, like your typical grant program. Essentially, Mike is right. It's award based.
Okay, well, I would think that was a very positive thing because it
Yes,
would
makes things a little
streamline
bit easier.
the whole thing. So there's no plan. And how would this uh, intersect with, apparently the Garlic Festival is not employing Greenway anymore. I talked to Josephine because I wanted to volunteer, and she says, well, I'm not involved anymore, and that the
Yeah.
Kiwanis is going to take over responsibility for collection and
Yes.
disposal. Do you know
That's-
anything about that?
That's the plan. We're still working out the logistics. But like I said, our plan is come Garlic Festival, we're going to be doing, everything in house,
Including the composting?
including the composting. That's the plan.
Because as I understand it, it's not like regular composting because of those biodegradable plastics and stuff. It takes a high heat situation, not just
Yep.
I don't know that even the county could take that and
Yeah.
put it in their counting thing. So,
That's
getting,
going to be a real loss
well,
because
let
Josephine
me
was
finish, let me finish, okay?
There's oh, go ahead, Skip. Sorry.
So I'm wondering if you don't have the composting permits together or the knowledge on how to compost that stuff, and this is the end of September, what are you going to do with that stuff if you don't have the composting sites together?
Yeah, valid question. Like I said, we're still working out the logistics.
So there's no plan B?
At the moment, no.
Mike had mentioned something about possibly ending up having to send it to Greenway. That one, he didn't relate that to you?
No, that was not part of our conversation.
All right, all right. Would really be great to have this plan in place. And we'd really like to be kept, up on it.
Absolutely.
that composting element, what it seems like it's not being taken with the kind of seriousness that it might be, and that's going to be really crucial. I don't know, maybe it's changed since the last time I knew, but there were stricter regulations on a
Yes.
composting site than there was on actual food collection and
Sure.
stuff.
What?
So I would just encourage you to find out about that, because just assuming that you can dump it over at the high school or you could dump it at the transfer station, might not, you might not.
I understand.
So anyway. Does anybody else have any questions about this? Elizabeth? Does anybody else have any questions? Use your hand, use your little raised hand.
Okay. Am I muted?
No?
The last few years when I volunteered, I felt that it was a really good, the Greenway and Josephine and her team were really good at doing this. Even with that, there was the most enormous amount of waste, mostly food waste. And without Greenway, I think it's going to be quite a problem. So I hope something gets put in place within the next month.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment? Try to use your raised hand thing so that I can see who's coming to talk. No other comments on this?
My hand up.
It does? Oh, okay, Steve. Actually, you know what? I can't see the top of the screen. God, it happened before to me. Let me see if I can. Okay, Steve.
You're muted, Stephen. Unmute yourself.
Do we assume that the award has been given and will be received, or are we waiting to hear about that?
We are still waiting on official notice. The conversations have been very promising, but again, don't want to hold their feet to the fire on that. We are waiting on an official notification.
Okay.
Anybody else have a comment? Okay. Thanks, Zach, and keep us informed. I'm especially wondering about that composting issue, because that seems to be a biggie that's, they said they were, applying for the registration for handling food waste and all that, but not much mention was taken of the, and I had some conversations with school board people, and the people on the school board didn't know anything about this at all. Now, they said that's maybe not unusual. Maybe everything's being done through Dan Erstig, which is.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. That was my impression when Mike met with the school, going back a couple weeks ago now or so. I believe it was just with the superintendent's office. I don't think any school board members were present. I could be mistaken, but I don't believe so.
No, they said they weren't. So I was just, because I talked to them about that. They said, oh, wow, that sounds good. Apparently they're bringing on another teacher that has agricultural experience, which would be helpful. But they still, apparently, when Katie talked to him, Dan said there was no plan yet.
Sure.
So anyway. Okay, so are we done with questions on this? Okay, thanks, Zach.
Sure.
Okay, so Carol said she might have to leave early. So let's go to the planning board referral letter first so that she can leave. So a while back, Adriana sent me an email saying that, asking if the planning board had asked us for a referral about a project, I guess it's on West Saugerties Road, and the name is Rasushi.
Rapucci, yeah.
Oh, Rapucci, right.
Yeah.
And that, would we want to comment? So I set it off to Mary, and because this is a kind of a task force issue, to Mary and Linda. And apparently the town, it was sent to the town, and it said the town was interested. They sent a letter of interest. So what the Cornell Cooperative Extension is heading this up, and they said Cornell Cooperative Ulster is in the process of applying for a stewardship grant through the Hudson River Estuary Program to conduct climate vulnerability assessments. We wonder if the town of Saugerties might be interested in participating. The project would include completing and updating climate smart resiliency planning tool, climate vulnerability assessment, and recommendations for future adaptations. This would fulfill requirements for the Climate Smart Community Actions, PE7, blah, 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 which I think we've already done. The full project would be at no cost to the town and would require time for municipal representatives and stakeholders. The bulk of this time would be dedicated to completing the planning tool and to several in-person meetings where local stakeholders would work to identify climate vulnerabilities. If this is something the town would be interested, blah, 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 blah. The town was interested. They sent a letter of interest. And I sent that on to Mary and Linda to get their reactions to see if we wanted to be involved. Mary responded that actually she participated in a like study in 2019, which we got 7 points for. So it was evaluating the policy for climate vulnerability. Cornell Cooperative Extension prepared the material, ran the workshop, prepared a final report. My commitment, that is Mary, my commitment was to participate as a stakeholder in 1 or 2 workshops at the senior center, and attached is the final report. I sent that around to everyone. Participation would be very beneficial to update the 2020 report and to advocate for climate environmental actions. So also Linda was interested, but she can't be here tonight. So that's the thing, and it seems like Mary recommends that we be involved in this. It seems like it's just participation. If it was before, like Mary had in a couple of workshops, Linda was up for that. And even if she wasn't, she's not here, so I'm volunteering her. And that's her that's her vulnerability. If you don't show up,
You get assigned.
right, exactly. That's vulnerability. So that's
I'm
where that
showing up.
stands. I want to know if Mary wants to say any more about that.
Not really. I think you pretty much covered it all. And the assumption is that it's going to be similar to what we did back in 2019. And it looks like it is. And basically what they would be looking to from us as stakeholders to participate and to, give our input. That was pretty much the role that I played the last time. And the last time there was representatives from the town, from the village, and other stakeholders, and Cornell just ran the whole show. They ran the whole show. So yeah, I think it's very, very worthwhile to participate because obviously, the vulnerability issue is important. Yeah, that's all.
Right. Okay.
And Cornell runs a really good show, so I think they did. I don't know about this particular program, but I've been in other things that Cornell Cooperative has run, and they're very good.
Okay.
I just would point out one thing here. They are applying for a grant to do this. My understanding is that they haven't gotten the grant yet, but that's going back. They may have gotten it in the meantime, but going back to 2 or 3 months ago, they were applying for the grant. So I think that's just an important aspect.
Okay, I guess I skipped a topic here. I was starting to talk about the planning board for
Yeah.
Rapucci. I'm sorry, I got off
That's
track.
okay.
So anyway, the Adriana sent me a letter. Well, first of all, is there any more questions about the vulnerability issue? Yes, Elizabeth.
Muted.
Muted.
Unmute.
You're on mute. Elizabeth, you're muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
I had a kind of deja vu sense about this because it might have been what Mary was participating in a couple of years ago. And I do think it's a very good idea. If, I'd be willing to volunteer for that if it going forward to participate.
Me too.
Okay, great. Wow, 2 volunteers.
got
Wow.
4 people.
And we showed up.
I would too.
Okay, so back to the planning board, which I started and I went off subject here. I don't know why I did that. An old guy. So Adriana sent us a questioning about whether we'd been asked for a referral to a planning board issue that's happening at the Ripatucci, is that how you pronounce his name?
Rapucci.
Ripatucci
Yeah,
on Saugerties. And I hadn't received anything. And so I contacted Carol and Stephen, and hopefully they were going to talk to Leslie to look at this and see if it's something. I mean, that they asked us was significant because we're, like Mike pointed out, we're being considered as a player.
Mm.
So maybe we should respond to that, but only if we have something significant to say, I think.
Yeah.
So I put it over to Carol and Stephen and possibly Leslie to investigate that, to see if we should put in some referral, if there was some issue that we wanted to chime in on. So I'll let them talk about that.
so are you, Stephen and Leslie, are you okay if I just start it
Yeah,
off?
I really had very little to say. I punted everything to you and potentially to Leslie. So
Okay.
fire away.
Okay, so it was on the agenda this Tuesday, so we were able to get a quick glance. There's a lot of wetlands on this. I don't know if everybody knows who Howie Wittenbecker was. It's his property that they're now subdividing. And I don't know if Rapucci bought it from them or if he's a family member who's developing it, but that's immaterial. I remember Howie thinking that it was always too wet to subdivide. But it's wetlands that have jurisdiction, that DEC has jurisdiction over. They're large areas of wetlands, and DEC has been involved and will be involved. So it felt like it's being covered well right now by that, but we are definitely want to make sure, and I don't know if that's, I do appreciate that they're reaching out to all these committees that care about our community and that we're one of them. And wetlands is our, is our sort of bailiwick to some degree, or water anyway, of all sorts. And so I would, there's not much to really talk about here. I think it's in good hands for the moment. And I agree with you, Skip, that there's nothing much that we could add. So other than to say, yes, we appreciate being a part of this conversation and want to continue being involved. Steve, you're muted again.
You're muted.
Okay. Is there another question regarding wetlands in that property that are not designated by DEC? If there are some, how should those be handled? Or what if there's some small ones?
Yeah,
that
I think that's a good question. Right now, that it
captured.
seems like most of the wetlands are under the jurisdiction of DEC,
Okay,
if not federal. There are, federal and DEC have maps designating all of these different areas that are called wetlands. And when developers come in front of us, they have to show all that mapped on their plans. But because this one is such a large one in terms of wetlands, you have to be very careful about how you develop it. And so DEC is very much interested in this one.
but the developers will have to wait until DEC has rendered their decision, right?
Correct.
There's nothing to be done until then.
Correct.
So
I don't know if what we would do even after DEC gets involved. But maybe we could talk about that later. I don't really know what our how we could influence, other than perhaps, I guess, making it more what's the word for it?
Stricter.
More stricter. Thank you. So,
well, it sounds like if DEC has got their eye on it,
right.
certainly they're more knowledgeable than we are. So, I mean, if they weren't involved and we thought they should be involved, that might be a referral, but apparently they're involved. So,
Right. And I know that they're in the process of expanding their maps. And until they do, they sort of put out the word that these non-jurisdictional wetlands are still, people who work and develop on them are still responsible for deciding on the wetlands and how to deal with them, and you have to keep that 100-foot perimeter around any wetlands, no matter what. And they're putting the onus and burden on the owners and or developers for those that aren't mapped. So that's where we could play a role, but I don't know that much about it either, other than that that's a requirement.
Okay.
Skip, Elizabeth, and Leslie have hands raised.
Okay,
Um,
Elizabeth?
Les-
Elizabeth?
Yes, I probably should know the answer to this question, but is it my impression that the Great Fly is the largest wetland area? It's in both Greene and Ulster County, but is that under both federal and state and DEC jurisdiction? Because you know that is sort of a template, isn't it, for other considerations? I don't really know the answer to this question. I'm just putting it out there.
Guess nobody knows.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time seeing. the
Leslie?
hands.
It
So
is
let me
under the jurisdiction of federal and state, but it also is also protected.
Okay.
It's, you know, it's bigger than 12.4 acres, which was the cutoff. Now it's 7.4. I can't remember exactly what it is, but anyway, when you get a chance, I have my hand raised.
Okay, go ahead. I can't, for some reason on my screen, I can't see those. I'm sorry. So go
Skip,
ahead.
you might reduce the size of you may be on the highest, the biggest thing, reduce it.
Biggest
That little
thing?
square on the upper right.
Uh-huh.
If you reduce your screen, you'll see the hands.
Ah, no, if I expand it, I do. Okay, now I can see part of it.
Okay, and that's
right.
that's the deal.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Leslie.
So I am not a wetlands expert, but I would like to see protection of the vernal pools. And I read something that if they're not interconnected, they might not be protected. I'm not sure if I saw that, if I know that, but applying those criteria that are in the new DEC law about X number of egg cases for egg masses for like wood frogs and this and that would need to be looked at in my mind. And that can't be done until the spring of 2026. I don't know what their track is on getting this developed. I did not find the maps easy to look at. I blew them up. The black and white format was a bit difficult for me. And I really only saw the one big wetland, but I think that, you know, we need to be putting our eyes towards vernal pools and the importance of them. And a secondary thing that popped up for me, which I think will be taken care of by DEC's habitat biologists before the stream, putting in the box culvert. The bottom of the box culvert should be at least 6 inches below the stream bed, and the substrate from the stream should be distributed through that box culvert to make it essentially like the stream bottom above and below it. And that would allow for fish and other aquatic organisms to pass through rather than, you know, having it too high. And there was something was mentioned about a plunge pool too for culverts. And I don't love the idea of plunge pools because that means that there's aquatic organisms that want to move from one part of a stream to another. They're not going to be able to jump up out of a plunge pool through a culvert and move elsewhere. But without actually seeing the site, seeing what was going on, it is hard to make any comments or recommendations. But I think that bottom line, vernal pools are important. Water connectivity is important for aquatic organisms to be able to move upstream and downstream.
So is that something that would
that's all I
be-
can say right now.
So is that something that DEC would look at also?
Yes, I believe they would. Yep, that would
Okay,
be
so
their
that's not
habitat
something
biologist.
It's not, it's going to be covered.
Believe it would be, yep.
Okay.
It ought to be, yes. I'm sure it will be because there will be permit conditions.
Okay, so that's,
So
I mean, if it weren't gonna, if somehow it was outside
if there's
regulation,
anything that's unprotected, that would be unprotected stream, then yeah. But I looked at the main stream is a Class C stream, so I think that that proper box culvert installation would apply to a Class C stream. I'm not 100% sure. I never worked as a habitat biologist.
well,
But
okay, so
anyway,
this is,
that's
you know,
that's just my quick take on it and just what I gathered from the
okay. Any other
documents I looked
comments?
at.
Any other one you want to comment on this? Okay. All right, so I guess for now, I mean, it seems like the conclusion is that all this stuff is covered by DEC. So we don't have, I mean, if it was, if like the vernal pools weren't, and we had to bring that to attention, we might want to refer to that, but otherwise, you know, I don't think we need to send a referral. Doesn't
Yeah,
seem like.
and I would
yeah.
certainly, I really appreciate having that little quick introduction to that. And would certainly pay more attention to that aspect of this
Right.
while we're looking at it through at the planning board level.
Okay. Mary, do you want to comment anything on the CCAP? I had that down.
Yeah, yes, I would. There's a couple of issues that I think we need to go over, but first, I do want to thank all you amazing proofreaders. I know you spent a lot of time, Leslie, and
I'm sorry it was late.
and Stephen and Susan.
Even
So you guys are great. You guys are great. Thank you.
Pickers.
Okay, yeah, there's just a couple of issues quickly. One is regarding table 1, which is the inventory that we got from Ulster County for the different sectors. And Stephen raised in his comments, I think, something that we all should be aware of and that we should be comfortable with, that the data in the inventory is accurate for our community. And just so you know, we did not have anything to do with preparing the data. We got it, and we just want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. So Stephen and I talked about this yesterday, and I'm going to ask Stephen to just summarize his comments and where we are in terms of the inventory, whether or not we had to go back to ICLS, to the group that prepared it, and make any changes. So Stephen, if you would be good enough just to explain your comments and where you think we should be in terms of that table, whether it does need revision or to go back to the group that prepared it.
I said to Mary that the table had some relatively minor, not errors, but sloppiness in assigning units, like million BTU to one commodity and gallons to another. But that when you go through all that, it doesn't really change the metric tons of CO2 equivalent emitted from those sources. And so it was more just my suggestions related to tidying up table 1 to make it look more rigorous. But I don't think it's necessary to send it back or even talk about the minor points, because the metric tons of CO2 work out pretty well. So I think, I mean, of course, we have no way of establishing absolutely how accurate that is for Saugerties, but I think we just have to take it for granted. That was a good set of data to work with, I think.
Yeah, and they had their methodology, and it's all spelled out in the Ulster County inventory. So, and what they did in many instances, they use population to distribute some of the different numbers. So I think, given their professionalism, given the protocol that they used, given the fact that the county has endorsed it and sent it to us, I'm comfortable with the inventory as it is now. Is it, as Stephen said, is it 100%? You know, could it be tweaked this way or that way? Probably. But I think at this point, if everybody is comfortable with the inventory as it is, I'm suggesting that we leave as is, as Stephen has said.
Okay, Stephanie, you have a question? You're
Yeah.
muted, Stephanie.
Hi. This actually goes back, hi, everyone. This goes back to the last topic, which was regarding the Rapucci project and whether your group has any contributions to make in terms of comment on the wetlands review underway right now. I just wanted to offer that in my work, I've become acquainted with a wetlands engineer named Joe Damrath, who currently works for the DEP, but he's a certified wetlands engineer. And I had a conversation with him about his interest or availability in supporting public review of wetlands delineations at Winston Farm, just as an idea. And he was very receptive to that. And I just wanted to let you know that he is a Saugerties resident and that he's interested in being a resource potentially to community groups or just generally speaking. And if there comes a time where this group might want to examine some of the findings on the ground at the Rapucci project or others, that he might be someone that could be tapped on for a kind of counterbalance if there's any question about what's been determined by the team from DEC or by the engineers retained by an applicant.
Okay. Could you email me his contact?
Sure, I'll make an introduction.
Okay, great, fantastic. Elizabeth?
Yes, well, responding to yesterday's confusion or recent confusion, quite a while ago, I had volunteered for Mary's outreach regarding this CCAP document, and I realized that the last three, since I'm not adept at Facebook or other social media groups, it seemed to me that the last three categories I could help with. So I just wanted to put out that if there was a need for outreach in those regards, I'd be glad to do so.
Yeah, okay, yes, Elizabeth, I think down the road, once we get this document finalized, and once we put it out for public comment, yes, there will be a need to reach out to the various media
Okay.
that's out there. So yeah, down the road, we'll be looking to that. So with getting just back to the inventory, I assume we're all in agreement that we believe it as it is and go forward. The table remains as it is. There'll be no changes. So the other issue that I want to bring up to the group is the industrial sector for emissions. We know that the transportation and vehicle sector is the greatest, it provides the largest amount of emissions, okay? And residential is third. The 12.1% of the emissions come from residential. 55% of our emissions come from transportation and vehicle. The industrial sector, which we have not put into our plan at this time, emits 17.1% of the emissions. So what I discovered in looking at the emissions for Ulster County in industrial sector is 17.1%. And when I looked at our emissions for the Saugerties, it was 17 or 18.1%. And I thought, how could this be? So I'm revisiting the whole part of the plan regarding industrial sector. And what I am suggesting is that for the industrial sector, we address it in the final, in this manner. Just by way of background, the roughly 17–18% of emissions comes from Northeast Solite. They are burning coal. They are permitted by the DEC. They are re-permitted every, I believe, 5 years. And how do we put in our plan a way to address bringing down those emissions? We've done it for the residential sector. We have strategies how we can bring down the emissions there. We have strategies how we can bring down the emissions from transportation and vehicles. But how do we address those emissions from Northeast Solite, basically? So here's my thought. I think what we could do is, and I welcome your suggestions and your thoughts, but one thought I had is that we could have the town establish a task force to look at this and make recommendations as to how these emissions could be reduced. Let a task force look at it, see what could be done. Are there ways that mitigation efforts that could be made to reduce the emissions? Is there something that could be done at Northeast Solite in terms of their operation and how their facility works that could bring down the emissions? So my thought is perhaps a task force could be assigned that task of making recommendations and looking at this issue, because it is a significant amount of emissions for our community. And rather than ignore it, I'm trying to come up with a way to address it. So I open it up for discussion and I welcome your comments.
Elizabeth, you have your hand up.
Yes. Well, that does seem egregious. And would there not be any way of contacting the DEC directly and finding out why they are, why they have approved of this coal burning at Northeast Solite?
Well, Elizabeth, to answer that question, I would say that would be a job for the task force. Establish a task force to look into this and work with the DEC and work with Northeast Solite and look at this. I don't think at this point that's our job. I mean, our job now is to come up with a recommendation or a way to reduce the emissions from that sector. So I think, to your point, a task force could take on that.
I see.
Okay, Leslie? Leslie?
I took me a second to unmute. I really appreciate your deep thinking and the work that you put into that plan. Thank you so much. And I would say, should a task force be put together, it would be remiss if somebody from Solite was not on that task force, because you want all the stakeholders there.
Yeah, on that
and it could be difficult, but still, I mean, you want their expertise, and we can't really prescribe for them what they could do without having somebody from them on.
Yeah, to that point, Leslie, I mean, I didn't want to go this far in the plan, but my thought was, have a task force, have a representative from the town, have a representative from DEC, have a representative from Northeast Solite, and have someone from the task force. I mean, Stephen is so knowledgeable about this, and he said he would actually, I don't want to, maybe I shouldn't say it, but he did indicate that perhaps he would serve on a task force if it was established. But I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, but my thought is to recommend that a task force be established. I don't know if we want to take that next step and say who should be on the task force. I think let's leave it open at this point, but you're thinking I was thinking along the same lines.
Yeah, maybe I didn't want to get ahead of my skis, but I just wanted to at least say that. So
yeah. And Stephen, can I bring you into the conversation now? Because Stephen actually has some ideas of ways that the emissions could be reduced. Stephen, do you want to speak to that?
Mary, thank you for pointing this whole thing out. It seems to me that there are three ways I can think of. They're all pretty impractical One would be set up direct carbon capture on the stacks of Solite. Very expensive, not proven to work. Another one would be to convert to natural gas, but I myself think that natural gas leaks in the transportation system are so large that it would not really be any better than the coal. And the third thing, even more outlandish, would be to go to some of these new ideas like hydrogen to power. This is like the cement industry. You just need enormous amounts of power to crush stone. And so the cement industry is working on green cement made with various materials and on the possibility of using solar generated hydrogen as the fuel, but that's a long way off. So I'm greatly in favor of the task force. I don't know that we can really come up with a plan other than shutting Solite down, and nobody wants to say that should be done.
No,
So,
no.
Stephanie?
Sorry, I'm slow on the unmute.
Okay.
This is really wonderful thinking. I'm really happy to be here to learn about the creativity and intention that this group has. I'll just offer a thought, which is that any implementation plan, if a task force is formed, if it gets to a idea, a concept that has legs, it'll need substantial funding. And so finding out, learning as early as possible in the process about what those sources of funds might be and how they partner with businesses that are undertaking these self-assessments would be key to a successful outcome. And unfortunately, many of the funding sources are being gutted or already have been, and so there's a kind of a ticking clock if there are some programs that still have active funding cycles. I would point anyone working on this, and I'd be happy to talk further. And to be supportive in any way of this thinking, should reach out to NYSERDA, and I can look for a contact person there if no one in this group has that at hand, because they're very well funded and they have mature programs that are specifically supportive of innovation towards carbon reduction, and might be one of the best chances of getting the funding support that the project would need.
please give us that name. That would be a big help, Stephanie.
Sure.
You can send it to Skip, but he'll get it
Yeah,
onward.
Stephanie, just by way of background, our task force has been very actively working with NYSERDA in their clean energy program. And we've actually gotten grants. We've got $100,000 grant last year to acquire, I believe it was 2 vehicles, all electric, lightweight vehicles. They have funded LED lighting at the town hall. They have funded a number of different actions under the CEC program. So they have been terrific partners. Unfortunately, they're on hold in terms of their clean energy program right now. It is on hold, and I think they're looking to. I know they're looking to update it or revise it in some fashion. So, yeah. So any contacts that that you have with NYSERDA, perfect. Would be very helpful to move this forward. Carol?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up, because especially Solite has been one of those plants that you see from a distance with the smoke billowing out. And sometimes you see them as brown smoke, which generally indicates there's a lot of particulate matter in how it's burning, that it's not combusting properly. And what's interesting right now is that from a planning board perspective, there's Walnut Farm is becoming a wedding venue. It is a wedding venue right now, but it's a small one, but they're expanding. And there's the horse farm. And so you almost think, I believe, that maybe that there will be more pressure like that to slowly allow Solite to no longer be. But I don't know how important they are in the industry. I don't know how important they are in hiring people. I don't, all of those things. So the task force would be an amazing thing to have happen. So thank you. Thank you, Mary. That's very exciting.
Yeah. I really want to erase any thoughts of eliminating.
No, I'm not trying to eliminate.
Completely from the conversation. What I would be looking for is to have this group look at what their process is and come up with some sort of tweaking or some sort of measures that would reduce it. And just initially, just get the ball rolling. Let's get the ball rolling. And I think if we get, good people on the task force and willing to work together, then perhaps some solutions could be made. So just to wrap this up, I don't want to spend too much time, but so you're in agreement, everyone is in agreement that there would be a recommendation to establish a task force to look at ways to reduce those emissions from the industrial sector. Okay, we're good on that, guys?
That's a great idea, I think.
Okay,
Mike.
good. And we'll just leave it like that. We won't get into specifics.
Okay.
I think it would be important to send something out to the town government indicating the research or the data that the county is showing us. And through that, indicate a recommendation that a task force be created so that the town board doesn't have any of this information. From what you're saying, almost a total what would be the word?
Industrial.
Well, the industrial, it's almost the whole county, the same number as the county.
Right, it is the only industrial site. It is
so the industrial pollution is essentially Solite, and that represents the total number for the county.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's a appreciable statement, and I think it doesn't look good for Saugerties in general that we are the main polluter in the county. But I would suggest not jumping to create a task force, but certainly indicate what the problem is to the town board and indicate our suggestion that a task force be created with the stakeholders that you have outlined, and let's get a response.
Well, Mike, I think that's a good suggestion, but where we are right now is to finalize this plan. So what I need to do now is to put in a section in the plan that talks about industrial sector. I'll talk a little bit about Solarite and what the emissions are, and it's over 4,200 metric tons, and then make the recommendation to follow along as we've done in the plan already, where we have the transportation sector, and these are our strategies, residential, these are our strategies, industrial sector, this is our suggestion. So
can you, so what you're saying is you just want to put that suggestion into the document?
That's all I want to do right now.
Okay,
I want to get this document done.
Okay, that wasn't clear.
Mary, may I ask a question? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
It may be a little premature based on what you're saying now, but I know several folks over at Solite, as I'm sure many of you do too. Would you like me to canvass to see who may be interested in coming, to that table when the time comes? Because I do second Leslie's comments. I do think it's important to have buy-in from them as well.
Yes. I think when we get there, Zach, that would be terrific
Very good.
Once we get buy-in from the town to establish the task force.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I think that would be terrific. I think, you know, the more cooperation that we can, that the group, that the town can have with Northeast Light, the better, the better.
Good. All right.
Sure thing.
But to your point, maybe, Mike, yeah, I think, you know, what you're saying could and should be done, but maybe that, let's do the plan, let's get that in the plan first, and then are you
Oh.
suggesting separately we can
That's
bring it to the
yeah,
town's
no,
attention?
I have no problem with that. That's
Yeah,
great.
okay,
Let's just get it into your plan and then take the second step.
okay, great.
Leslie?
Okay.
Leslie?
Okay,
Yeah. Give me a second to get my unmute button off, will you?
Jesus, Skip.
I know, impatient guy there. So, I love the task force, and I think, boy, one of the first things, and just not to get too ahead of my skis here, but would be a tour. You know, just friendly thing, just show us, you know, your operation. You know, tour. I don't know if anybody sitting here on this Zoom meeting has ever been there, and I think, you know, would be a nice way to kick things off if should this ever come to be.
I mean,
And-
that could be the first task of the task force
Mhm.
to go on site and look at what's going on, yeah.
for them to show us, not for us to tell them anything.
No, right,
Yeah.
exactly,
For
I
us to
agree.
learn it, listen and learn.
yes, to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got that wrapped up. The only other, okay, so the next step then. So the next step is I will put that section in the plan. It should be ready to go then. So for the next step, I think my thought is let's do a memo to the town board, sending the draft to them, you know, telling them that it'll be going out for public comment and how, et cetera. And then after that, the outreach group, CIC, will make sure it gets publicized. We have the different media that we're going to use. So that would be the next step. And that's when Elizabeth, you know, in terms of outreach, you'll get involved at that point. Is there any suggestions in terms of anything else we need to do going forward? Send it to the town board, publicize it, get the feedback, compile the feedback, and then finalize the plan based on the feedback, and then it goes to the town board for approval. That's the way I see the process. Am I missing anything?
Sounds good to me.
Stephanie has her hand up.
Thanks. I'm a member of the Comprehensive Planning Committee, and I'll just speak for that group that any communication with the town would be well served by including reference to the comprehensive plan's supportive language around mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions, because the town is actually obligated to consider the comprehensive plan when it's considering resolutions, proposals, and actions. And so that would add more weight to your recommendation to do that.
Okay, actually, Stephanie, I can send you a copy of the draft, and well, it'll go out for public, you know, comment, but actually in the plan itself, we reference the comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan calls for an inventory, a greenhouse gas inventory to be done. I think be done by maybe 2022, something like that. And it also calls for a community climate action plan, I believe in 2023. I could be off, but I think it's 2023. So we're a little bit behind in following up on the recommendation of the comprehensive plan. So thanks for, you know, bringing that up.
Leslie?
Your hand is still up.
I'm pretty sure I volunteered to help compile the public comments. And I think if we can go back several meetings, and if we can just pull, you know, who agreed to do what, I think that would be helpful. And it's been quite a while since we all raised our hands for different things. So
yeah, I have the list.
Oh, okay.
I have the
perfect.
list, and
Thank
once
you.
we get there, I'll send it out to everyone. Yeah.
Perfect.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a very minor point. You may have noticed that the graphic on the cover of the plan has changed. We had talked about using the photograph, if you recall, and we agreed to use the photograph. Upon further reflection, I thought for our graphic, we should probably use our banner, the Climate Smart Saugerties banner on the cover. It identifies the CAC and the task force, and it also aligns with the Climate Action Plan for Government Operations. For the cover there, we used our banner. So unless anybody objects and really thinks the photograph is better, I'd kind of like to just go with the banner on the cover, if everybody's okay with that.
Sure.
Any objections? Do you think it's okay? No objections.
it's
Okay,
fine.
great. Thank you.
Okay, so any more questions about CCAP? Okay, so pollinator meadow. Leslie, you're up.
Thank you for giving me time to get my unmute on. So,
Jeez.
so
A little jab.
it's
I
pretty
was
much the
saying that because other people were trying to
I
talk
know.
too. So I was going to say, no, it's Leslie's going to talk. That's why I said that, not because you're slow. You're not a slow person.
At the risk of sounding repetitive, it's just about the same. It needs weeding. I could use some help weeding the perimeter. This is not in the meadow. The perimeter needs weeding. I will be, as I did last spring, I had a group of about 20 people at the pollinator meadow, explaining how people can help pollinators, how they can have pollinator plants from a small, like 20, 25 square foot amount to as much as a whole meadow. And it was really well received. I'm doing it again in mid-September, and it's for the LifeSpring lifelong learning community. That's
great.
the learning community for Saugerties and surrounding. Anybody can join it, and the target audience is senior learners, senior lifelong learners. So I would love to get more weeding done. I spent a couple hours there one day and removed a lot of weeds. And a lot of the weeds coming in are actually seeds from the garden that are volunteering, which is all great, except that it's in our specimen bed. And so, it might say Monarda, and then the thing that's most prevalent in that little plot might be brown-eyed Susan. And so we don't want that kind of thing. So some help there. And while I was there and I was weeding, there were some kids that were practicing baseball, and there was one little guy that was left behind. He was still collecting some stuff. He came up to me and he said, "I love your garden. It's so big." And so I told him what it was about, and he smiled big. So in the fall, we'll be doing reseeding in those restoration sites. The one big one that we laid down a huge tarp, and then a couple of smaller ones. I have the seed, and I'd like to do that in early November.
So
It
why don't
won't
you put out
be-
some dates? Why don't you put out some dates,
Okay,
both the
Yep.
weeding and
Okay.
and the restoration,
okay,
and we can have people, respond to you,
okay. Yep.
what they
Shall
can
I
do.
send it to everybody or just the
Yeah, why
small
don't you
team
just-
that's send it
just
to
send it there,
everybody?
'cause
Okay.
You never know
Yep,
who's
I'll
going to
do that.
volunteer.
Yep.
You might even find Stephanie and Bill there.
Oh, that might be
Sign me
fun.
up.
Yeah. Oh,
The
good.
pollinator
Okay.
meadow is great. It's fun to work in.
It's
It's a
so,
joy.
I mean, it's exceeded my expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Talk
and
about
people are talking about it, and people are noticing it, and yeah. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
When we first started
Thank
it,
you.
we planned it, we thought, well, we might have to adjust expectations on this because we don't know how good this is going to be. And it turned out exactly the opposite.
Oh,
Turned out way
it-
more than we ever thought.
Incredible.
And so
and when I said manage expectations, a lot of people were referring to it as a pollinator garden, and that's the kind of thing that you see there, Partition Street in Montrose, I think it is. that's a pollinator garden. There's little walkways through and little benches, and it's
Oh,
all, maintained. And our meadow looks more like a haphazard English garden, if you even wanted to refer to it as a garden. But my sense of it was that this is going to look like an unkempt meadow and not somebody's garden. So I wanted to manage that expectation that, this is not going to look manicured. It's going to look like a haphazard
it's for the pollinator.
meadow, like nature likes it, not like people like it, and that
Right.
people are actually liking it. So good.
Right, both.
And I know actually it was earlier in the summer, I think it must have been around June, the recreation group, the town recreation Facebook page posted some pictures of it and said, hey, do you know we have a pollinator meadow at Cantine
Ah.
Field? And it generated some nice comments. And I know Mike Harkavy made some comments on it too. And then once I knew it was there, I made a couple of comments. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's getting a little bit of publicity.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so put that out and then we'll have people volunteer.
Okay, great.
We'll get people to volunteer. Okay, now you want,
Okey-doke.
anybody else want to comment on the pollinator garden? Okay, so we got Leslie again, New York State Forest grants.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's seen anything on this. There was an announcement that came out. I'm on you can sign up for various kinds of announcements from DEC, and I'm on, forest issues and things like that. But there are grant monies available for municipal land acquisition for community forests. And I think this started in 2022. And those sites would be publicly owned or publicly accessible. And it's and it is it's related to the climate change initiatives New York is taking. And specifically the 30% of New York's forests and waters conserved by the year 2020. And so this is a way to achieve that. And the projects can be on private lands. But through it, you can get a conservation easement to make it publicly accessible. The lands have to be at least 10 acres, and 75% of that acreage must be forested, i.e. trees that are, I think that said 5 meters or more, like 15 feet or higher, and not agricultural lands. That's not counting as it, but 75% forested. The grants are between 50,000 and 300,000, and it requires a 10% municipal match. And it covers across the board from surveying and documents and attorney's fees and all of that kind of thing. And it's done by a request for bids. And this is not that we can do anything about this now, but it's currently open with requests for bids through, I think they're due September 17th. But I think this is something that potentially might work at Winston Farm, or maybe we've got other opportunities. Winston Farm's got like the biggest forested piece, but something to be aware of that seems like it's going to be coming back annually.
Right.
And if you want to look it up yourself, you could just Google New York State DEC community forest grants.
Okay, any comment?
I think
Okay.
it's pretty darn neat.
Yeah, right. Although
Yeah.
relative to Winston Farm, $300,000 sounds like a lot of money, but relative to what those guys want, for their land, that's a small amount, really.
However, you could perhaps purchase a conservation easement. I know when the state has bought conservation easements, because they are in perpetuity, they actually pay the assessed the fair market value of the land just to get the easement. So
Yeah.
it can be expensive, but in any instance, I think it's well worth our being aware of.
Bill, are you raising your hand? Okay, you are muted.
No, we're muted.
No,
There you go.
okay. No, you're good.
It says mute. Oh, I see. Okay, a little bit slow on the technology, sorry. No, I think it's, first thing I thought of is Winston Farm when you started talking about it, until you got to the money, and it's not enough. What I'm thinking about is North Street in the Village. There's 22 acres there that this guy wants to develop. And it's gorgeous woodland. Might have to talk to Bill Murphy about it. I don't know what your relationship with the Village is, but I guess I could talk to
We're
Bill
a
Murphy.
town entity. So
Hmm?
we're a town entity.
I understand that, but there wouldn't be any reason the Village could not use it as well, right?
Oh, right, sure.
Okay, thanks.
Leslie, you still have your hand up? Is that intentional?
Yeah, I did. I put it back up for two things. Maybe somebody from DEC could talk to the town and the village, do a little presentation on it at some point. But secondly, we wouldn't have to buy all the forested land at Winston Farm. It's 10 acres minimum. Could we buy 10 acres? Could we get conservation easement? I mean, it'd be great to get conservation easement to all of whatever gets preserved as forest there. I would love to see that. And maybe it could be free. Maybe we wouldn't even have to pay for it. But I'm not sure I would reject out of hand that to get some little piece of it. But yeah, North's a great idea. That's it. I'll put my hand down and shut my mouth.
Okay, any more comment on the forest grants? Okay, we're at town liaison. Zach, do you have anything to say, to add?
Just while we briefly mentioned Winston Farm, we did get notification from the project sponsors that they are in the process of combing through and compiling the substantive comments. Those are going to be, I'm hoping, available soon. They seem to be working pretty diligently. So that'll, jumpstart the next part of this process.
Could you explain that? Well, now, right? Because there's a lot of people, me included, that
Sure.
don't know exactly what this, right now, we're going over the comments on the DGEIS.
Yes.
Now, it's my understanding that both the sponsor and the lead agency, the town board, are doing this. And then what happens?
What happened? Right. So my understanding is that once that substantive comment review period is complete and all of those comments are available, we're going to have access to those. Then we're going to have the opportunity to go through and confirm those comments and what we think should be addressed in that final document.
Okay, so you're determining what should be addressed, not how it is addressed.
No, I'm under the impression that it's both. Those things are going to be,
Okay.
should to some degree happening simultaneously.
Yeah, well, you said the one. I just want to, because this all along the subtleties of this process, sometimes they
Yeah.
escape me. That I
Yeah.
mean, to go over the things, to look at the things, to curate them in a form that gathers them together under categories are one
Yeah.
thing, and that what happens at this point with those comments. I mean, I asked Adriana, and I asked her, was the comments and the responses going to be available? And I, at that point, thought that what the result of that combination would be the final GEIS.
Right.
But she says
Yeah.
that presenting the comments and the responses is the final DGEIS. That we'll see both the comments and the responses to those
And the responses, yes.
and that listing will be what's called the final. Is that correct? Leslie's shaking her head, because I thought at first there were two separate entities there, that there was call and response, and the result of that would be then a document called the final DGEIS, the final
Right.
EGIS. But actually, that call and response, the comment and response, is the final.
is going to be
So
that final
we'll be able
document.
to see, we'll be able to see each of those comments that was considered substantial.
Yes.
That category of, and we'll be able to see what the response is to those. Is that?
Yes, I that's done by that's a requirement, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, that the public has to see those substantive comments and the responses provided.
Right. And is that what's called the final final EGS? Is that?
I was
Leslie-
under the I would see, this is where a lot of this communication takes place, because I was under the impression, like you just mentioned, Skip, that we're talking about two separate things, that the first phase prior to actually having that final generic document, it would be the substantive comment review. And based on what is provided in that review is what would guide the finalization of the final DGEIS.
But actually, it is the comments and the responses that comprise
That
that.
will comprise that final document.
Okay. Okay. So, and then that I was told that Adriana said, well, yeah, the time period for that is 45 days, but what it's looking like now is both the sponsor and the lead agency want to extend that, because that seemed like a really small time period.
Very, very small window. I mean, we're talking
Relatively what?
we're talking, I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of pages of comments. It's not feasible to,
Right.
adequately comb through those. So yes,
that-
we are looking at an extension. The original, when we were, this is going several months back, when we were discussing, a potential timeline for this process, it was pretty ambitious. The project sponsors were kind of thinking that, maybe this could be complete, early fall. I don't see how that's a possibility. We're probably, in my very inexperienced and humbled opinion, we're probably looking closer to the holiday season, I would imagine, before we're probably ready to, properly address a final document. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Right. Right. Okay. So is there any feedback on what we have proposed? I mean, we did some,
Yes.
technical stuff, but
Yep.
one of the major things that came out of our thing was proposing there be an overlay, open space overlay, and that be put in place as part of the PDD, not just as suggested as part of the master development plan, but
Right.
put in place before that, so that everybody looking at this had an idea of what was available. How was that idea accepted, and how was the idea, we pushed, we started with 50%, but we took the logic forward and ended up with 73%. So there's two
Yes.
things here. That being a specific overlay produced and presented in the PDD, and the size of that overlay. How were those things? Can you tell me how those were accepted or viewed?
I think it's hard to say whether or not, members are completely acceptive of that. I will say that there seems to be reason to negotiate with that, or at least look further at it. I'm just going to touch base on the open space comment. It seems, after speaking with, at least Mike and Fred, I haven't really gotten much feedback from Peg on her thoughts on the, open space part of this project. It seems that the majority believe that 70% is probably unlikely. I do think that 50% or slightly more can be easily achievable without including those recreational spaces. When we met with Adriana a few weeks back, and we were kind of going over um, what a layout for this property could be like, um, I had made the comment and let her know that, Mike seems to be in agreement with this as well. I would like a separate threshold for recreational spaces. I do think that those spaces are equally as important, but I do agree with the notion coming from the committee that those recreational spaces should not go towards that minimum open space threshold. I would like those to be separate. That seemed to be pretty well received, at least with Mike and Fred. Um, I think that we're close in terms of our line of thinking with a lot of the contentions that the committee is raising.
Okay.
Good.
Elizabeth?
Yes, I would certainly hope that our comments to the DGEIS are carefully considered, because the open space aspect and the looking carefully at the traditional neighborhood scenario
Yes.
is very important to me, and to it's such a complex document and such a
It is.
area that that I would hope that at least, I don't know what you mean by holidays, but maybe, Christmas holidays or something would be, 45 days is just too short a period to decide.
Agreed.
So I hope that our comments, particularly about the open space and also the climate change, the other aspects will be carefully considered and not rushed. No hasty decisions will be made about those.
Sure. I also, not to cut off whoever was about to speak next, I apologize, but I do have some concerns about the water output. We've raised that, as well, because in this draft document that we received, their maximum output was really just based on theory. And they have not been able to provide the proper testing to prove that their maximum gallons per minute output out of that well is what they say it could be. So that's something that we raise concerns about as well. I think we need to see more accurate hydrology.
Good.
And what about the issue? I mean, they're including what Montano has, but Montano's will is across Route 32.
It's on the other side. Yes.
Right, that's what I mean. And so
Yes.
because
I'm actually scared. I know it's across. I know it's across 32. I'm not exactly sure where that well is tapped, to be honest with you.
I mean,
I would have to look at the map.
seems like quite an issue of getting it, even though he can do it and he's willing to
Sure.
do it. How does he get it over to Winston Farm? And they count that in. They say they start with 220 and then they said, hey, add in Tony's 50.
Right.
And then
Right.
we'll put a bigger pipe in and we'll call it 370. So
Right.
anyway. Okay,
Yeah.
so Ken?
Yeah, thanks, Skip. I'm a little bit confused, and maybe you can help clarify it for me. I was under the impression, which may be wrong, that based on the comments that are submitted, the current document on the Winston Farm website might or might not be changed to take those comments and the responses by the owners into account. And that would be the hopefully final version of the DGEIS instead of a draft version. What I'm hearing now, I believe, is that the document will remain the same, but there will be added to it a set of what the questions raised were and what the responses are. And that would be the final DGEIS. If the DGEIS version on the website is not itself going to be changed, when and where will the good comments that the town board thinks are worth implementing actually becoming part of the document or procedure? If they look at our presentation, for example, of another overlay district, an open space overlay district, and that's not going to become part of the current document, when does it become part of the document? Does the town board say change things so you now have, as part of the PDD, an overlay district for open space? The comment that I suggested that if in the end there is a difference between the PDD requirements and the rest of the town zoning law, currently they have hidden in one of the appendices a statement saying if that should occur, then their laws take precedence over the current town laws, which I recommended, and it was included that it either be reversed or eliminated. When do these things that the town board decides are good things get included so they're not lost as simply a list of comments that's appended to the current document, the current draft DGEIS? I'm not quite sure what the next step is or how these have any effect whatsoever. Clarification, please. From someone? One?
Zach, are you still here?
Yes.
He's muted.
He may
Zach,
be.
Zach, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was having some connection issues. Bear with me one moment. Sorry about that. No, Ken, that's a great question. Again, my understanding was that the comment period was going to be separate from this final DGEIS, right? Because the comments should be guiding what that final document looks like. That would be the time for our concerns to be addressed and become concrete. We're going to have to get clarity on that because that was my interpretation of this process.
So you're, Zach, sorry, so you're not aware whether the final DGEIS will be what's currently online with these two things attached as appendixes, an appendix
Right.
with comments categorized and
Right.
responses, or whether the current DGEIS draft is actually going to change. My thought was that they would respond and the town would decide whether the responses reacted to the good comments well enough.
Right.
And
Right.
at some point, the town board would say, you haven't responded to all the comments we liked and agree with. Please
Right.
do that.
Right.
Change the DGEIS until it responds in an appropriate way that we
Right.
can accept. And that will be a DGEIS final version that we will accept from you. That was my
Right.
thought. And that was your thought?
That was my thought as well, because again, I'm not a legal expert by any means, but I think common sense would dictate that if we don't have the opportunity to put that into a final DGEIS itself, I think that leaves a lot of room for interpretation as to what will actually be settled and what wouldn't be in terms of our concerns.
When do you think the town board, in consultation with Adriana, I assume,
Yes, very much so.
will discuss this at the next board meeting, out in the open, or what?
That's possible. I think what's more likely is that once we get notice that the substantive comments are completely comprised and are ready for us to review, I think that timeline will become a little bit more definitive, if that makes sense.
Yep, it does make sense. Okay, and I hope that's exactly what happens, because if it doesn't, then what was the point of asking for comments in the first place?
Right.
If there isn't going to be the opportunity for the
Sure.
town board to take them into account and to identify which they agree with and simply hadn't thought of, or illustrate certain things that are possible but been thought of and now become part of the plan. So we certainly appreciate that happening at some point. And maybe if you
Yes, sir.
find out that that is going to happen or not, you could let us know, or let Skip, you would let us.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Steven?
Thank you, Skip.
Yep. Stephen?
I'm just thanking Ken for bringing this up so clearly, because I had the same idea that he did, that there would be a document called the GEIS,
It's fun.
which
Final.
As a new document and incorporated the reaction of the developers to all the questions. And then the town board, the lead agency, decides whether everything has been properly addressed, and they can make a decision on the PDD.
Leslie?
Yeah, a final EIS can include like reanalysis or a different study or some additional thing that has been identified as a deficit, or if something more is needed, but it does have to include the comments and the reaction, the responses to those comments. But yeah, it doesn't have to be exactly like the GEIS plus comments.
Mary?
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the idea that at least 50%. I think, having thought about this and having listened to the community's comments, a minimum of 50% open space is not really what the community is looking for. Most of the comments that have come in have said 73% open space. That has been reiterated and echoed throughout the process. I think a compromise, as you mentioned, Zach, would be appropriate. But I would also point out that in the DGEIS, almost 500 acres are listed as forested lands. So to think that the town would accept anything like a 50% or a 55% or some minimum amount of open space, I don't see how that would even work in terms of the forested areas. So that's something I think is important to consider. How much open space does the community want, and how to achieve that, working with the developer. But certainly a 50% or anywhere near 50%, I don't think is going to be acceptable.
Okay, that's a fair point, Mary. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Yeah, the point here is that there's 500 acres of forested land.
Yeah.
It's our carbon sink. If you do less than 73%, you're going to have to cut into that forest, and you're going to be cutting down your greenhouse gas carbon sinks.
Yeah, it's a very important issue, that forested area. And as we mentioned in our comments, we talked about a forest preserve land, which is now in the zoning law. That concept is in the zoning law, and how to preserve that forested area. And to Zach's point, I mean, we're talking about greenhouse gas emissions and how important that forest is to mitigate those those emissions. So I think we have to think long and hard about that issue.
Right.
Other comments?
Yes.
Okay, Elizabeth?
Yes, I would just underscore the importance of Mary's comment that it's crucial that we consider the forested area and the importance of cutting down greenhouse gases.
Other comments? Okay, so is there any other issues before the town, Zach, that you want to bring up or present to us? Are you with
I
us,
think
Zach?
always muted.
Are you muted, Zach?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just having. Yeah, I'm here. I apologize. I can hear you. I'm just having some connection issues.
Okay. So is there any other issues you want to bring up and let us know about?
The only other thing at the moment, we did get confirmation from our state senator and assemblywoman that the money that I helped to secure for JC Field is final. We were just waiting on some last minute signatures on some documentation from their offices, but I'm hoping in the springtime. Their Parks and Recs just has a lot of projects happening right now, and they're a little understaffed at the moment. So I'm hoping that the new field layout in that community park is going to be upgraded starting in the spring.
Great, great. Any other questions or comments for Zach? Okay. All right, so are there any announcements anybody wants to make? Leslie?
Yes, so I cannot make it to next Thursday or Wednesday's Ulster County Environmental Management Council's meeting. If anybody would like to go and go in person, I know the last one I wasn't able to get to either, and Linda went to it, but it's Wednesday in person. It's 6:30, and I think this time it's at the Office of the Environment. But if anybody wants to go, I can get the details to that person. Anybody want to jump on this?
We'll
Okay.
volunteer. She's not-
Leslie,
Volunteer.
excuse me, Leslie, I believe it's also, you can also Zoom in. Some of the members
Yeah,
do
it
Zoom in.
doesn't count to the for the doesn't
quorum.
count for quorum.
Quorum, yeah, okay.
But I'm going to be out of town helping a friend that just got knee surgery, so I can't commit to joining even online really. So yeah, anybody can go online to join it, but yeah.
No takers?
All right. Okay. Well, I'll just let them know that chances are nobody from Saugerties is going to be there.
Well, Linda is not here tonight. She might be available.
She might. Let's volunteer her.
Yeah,
Right.
She better show up.
don't show up, you get a job.
That's it. Make your chair.
You know, I'll just send the thing out, the announcement out, and I'll just say, is anybody interested in going to this?
Linda?
Linda. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, she went to the last one, right? So, I mean,
She
She's not-
did.
she's not adverse to that.
No,
Okay, well, let's
no,
see,
she's not.
see how guilty she is for not showing up tonight. Okay, any other announcements? Okay, who wants to adjourn?
No, let's
Somebody
hang.
wants to adjourn? Oh, there's some. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you,
Thank
Skip.
you, Skip.
Good night.
Thank you.